I've lived in Mason, grew up there, and have lived in Lansing now since about 2011. Um, my family on my dad's side was a large farm family made up of two families that lived next to each other. My dad's family, in which there were five children, and then his first cousins, my great uncles and aunt's family, and their six kids who all grew up together on this farm. And then I grew up right around the corner from the farm that's still in the family, run by my cousins. And yeah, so always had close ties with those folks, even though they're my second cousins. We saw each other all the time. And on my mother's side, she grew up in Flint, Michigan, and her parents came, my mom's dad came from Warren, Ohio, where he'd grown up on a farm. My mom's mom grew up in Flint, and they met each other at U of M when all the soldiers came back from World War II. And I remember her telling me how much fun of a time it was to be that age, and all the men were back home from the war. A number of members of my family have been very interested in learning about ancestry, which as a younger person I didn't necessarily find incredibly interesting, but as I get older and more people are gone, I have gotten more and more interested in hearing and collecting and just trying to commit to memory the different stories. And so my dad's side is mostly English. We're a mix of all the Europe, and yeah, they can go back to the 1600s in parts of the family tree. I have been told we're related to some of the people that came over on the Mayflower, some of the accused Salem witches, the prosecutor in the Salem witch trials, also Barbara Bush, which is, I think, where that lineage, where they discovered that. Mom's side, also some English, also some French Canadian, Eastern European, Slovakia was where my great grandfather came from. And yeah, so on both sides, we have been able to go back pretty far in our history. And a lot of members of my family are just very interested in collecting these stories. So I have followed suit as I've grown up. I guess I don't know so much about the journey. There were some stories that, as they've been delved into, we're not quite sure what might have been embellished. There was a story. My mom's maiden name was Revis, and she was always told by her dad that the guy that came over on the ship, his name was Enoch Ashby, but then changed his name to Revis at some point in time. And initially, he had been described as the ship captain, but in reality might have been a stowaway on the ship. Although I think more recently, my aunt has discovered that story just might be entirely false. I'm not totally clear on the details of this. When I first was interested in art and thinking maybe that's something I would actually pursue professionally or want to figure out how to orchestrate my life to be able to do art, I didn't. There was one artist, my dad's cousin, who is no longer alive, but she was the one, what you would call artist in the family. But what I realize is many of the people in my family are very creative and independent people that like to run their own show and come up with creative ways to solve problems and have really forged their own types of career paths. So I think that is something that definitely rubbed off on me. And yeah, I've had a lot of family support all along the way as I have traversed down this path. Even though sometimes I thought, well, I don't know who I even know to be a role model or see how people do this. But as I've gone along, I've realized that's actually not really that true. I've had a lot of support and a lot of people, my parents, who I know sometimes don't understand the moves I make, and yet have always been very, very supportive of me pursuing the things that I would like to do. This farm that I mentioned that my dad grew up at, back in the woods behind the farm, there is what I recently learned is an almost 120-year-old sugar house. I saw a picture of it, I think in about 1902. It looks almost the same. It has electricity now back there, but from the outside, it has the same sign that says Sugar Bush on it and looks virtually the same from the outside. And so yes, my great uncle, but before that, his dad made maple syrup, I believe. I hope I'm right about that. But yeah, my father has made syrup his entire life. He's 74 now. And 29 years ago, a mile around the corner where we lived, he built a sugar house back in their backyard and has made maple syrup there for the last 28 or 29 years, every spring in March. And what is also really cool is back in that woods, he knows those trees so well, the history of those trees, and to hear him talk about trees, I think is really, really beautiful to hear. Also in the woods is an old sugar house that he and his uncle built back there when my dad was 16. So it's kind of a falling down metal shack at this point, but we've discussed over the years what we might do with it. It was a place my sister and I would play, or also say was haunted, and we'd make up all sorts of things about it. But yes, his parents had built a house next door to the house I grew up in. And so yeah, when my dad and mom got married to each other, he really wanted to live right in this area, and convinced my mother that she could be a country person. Made some certain promises, like, whenever there's a mouse in the house, I will drop everything and come help you. So this is my paternal grandmother's journal from when she was about 14 and 15 years old. She was a very, very good journal writer throughout her life. This is one of the most fun journals. And so I will read a little bit of the first entry here, which is dated January 1st, 1942. She would have been 14, I believe. So I'll just start here. Well, today is the first day of the new year. The United States is at war with Japan and Germany, and I don't know who else. The world is generally a big mess. Last night, I attended watch night party at church. Had wonderful service, candlelight. Have been reading Reader's Digest practically all day. Did a little bit of work on biology. Now am listening to Major Boo last night in the firelight and moonlight. It was so beautiful. I love that her handwriting at that age is exactly the same handwriting she had when I knew her. She taught me piano. She was a music teacher, and we grew up with a lot of music, and she taught me piano starting in when I was in about kindergarten, and I played through high school. And now I'm starting to pick it up again. I have a piano at my house and have been working on that. Okay, so here's January 2nd, but actually it's crossed out and says January 3rd. I forgot to write on the 2nd, but I'll just have a double space for the 3rd. Well, Neil is gone and I am sad, but not as sad as usual, which is good. Yesterday, Billy, Guile, Harold, Reeves, and me practiced at Musselman's. It was fun. George, who's her brother, took them home. G has been repairing all the glass and making storm sash, and Neil's been helping him. Boy, was he cute. I hope I'll see him again sometime. George is out on a date with Jean S. I bet he won't have so many more of them. I wonder what Earl is doing. I saw him New Year's Eve for about 2 seconds. I can't seem to forget him. I guess I'm just hopelessly boy crazy. Mother got my Bible yesterday. I love it. Sunday, January 4th. George, Jean, and I went skating after Young People's. The ice was terrible, so they brought me home and then went again. They seem to be very much in love still, but I'm wondering how long it'll last. She's really skeptical about this. Earl gave me his picture tonight, a nice big one. He's a darling, but Billy Guile is cuter, and I like him more every day. Well, school starts tomorrow, and work. I miss Neil, and I've been thinking about Oliver, too. My grandpa's name is Bob. Actually, both my grandfathers are named Bob. Bob with one O, as my mom's dad used to say.